now introduce Gerardina Corona. She is Italian Carabinieri Major, Branch Chief at the Technological Development Office of the Carabinieri General Headquarters. Geraldina, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown the spotlight on violence against women, especially domestic violence. There has been an alarming rise in the incidence of gender-based violence during the imposed lockdowns, and the measures taken by governments have proven largely inadequate. They've fallen well short in dealing with the problem. It's very common for sexual and gender-based violence to rise during crisis everywhere. But what have been some of the policies of the Carabinieri in Italy to tackle the surge in gender-based violence during coronavirus?
Thank you. First of all, good morning and thank you. I'm very grateful for this kind invitation to this important event. Violence against women knows no latitude. It is an increasingly alarming phenomenon, a shadow pandemic as defined by the UN Women. Numbers from all over the world reveal that domestic violence, physical and psychological violence, dangerous situations fueled during the forced coexistence. In Italy, during the darkest period of the pandemic lockdown, fear increased and figures for violence tripled. Today, the trend in femicide does not seem to reverse. More than 6% in 2020. Over 90 women killed last year, 1 every 3 days. Since the beginning of 2021, 20 women have already been victims. To mitigate this data, the strengthened regulatory framework and the initiatives to prevent violence do not yet seem enough, as previous speaker said before. The Carabinieri Corps dedicates many resources in preventing and contrasting gender violence. A commitment to spreading the culture of legality through awareness campaigns on the protection of vulnerable categories, also organizing meetings in middle and high schools aimed at strengthening constant collaboration between students and police forces. The Italian legislation focused particularly on the protection of the so-called vulnerable victims, women and minors, the elderly, foreigners, and victims of usury or extortion. With the introduction in 2009 of the crime of persecutory acts into the Italian Criminal Code, the Carabinieri signed a special agreement with the Department of Equal Opportunity of the Presidency of the Council of Ministers, establishing a persecutory acts section within the Criminological Analysis Department of the Carabinieri Scientific Investigation Group. This special unit carries out studies and analyzes crimes against victims, developing assessment on risk factors to support operational function and developing personnel training programs. Since 2014, the Carabinieri Corps has been taking part in the National Monitoring Network on the phenomenon of gender-based violence. Judicial police officers are included in investigative division of the provincial commands groups, territorial departments, and companies, which support tasks in conducting investigation and liaising with the Persecutory Acts section for the evaluation and resolution of cases. The personnel belonging to the network is trained at the Higher Institute of Investigative Techniques, a center of high qualification in the field of gender violence. Till now, about 400 units have been trained. During the last years, thanks to the cooperation between the Carabinieri Corps and SOR Optimis International Italy, a non-profit organization that brings together women with high professionalism and works through projects aimed at advancing the status of women, promoting human rights, a project called a room all for myself has been realized all around Italy, providing 180 rooms where the Carabinieri officer can interview the victim of domestic violence in safe and secure environment.
And is the Carabinieri officer a male or a female?
Both.
Both.
Of course, both
Okay.
trained at the institute I've just mentioned, the Qualified Institute for Special Techniques.
But would you agree that survivors turn to open up more to women?
Of course,
officers?
generally survivors open up much more with women. And talking about the international commitment, it is necessary to underline that Italian armed forces are deployed worldwide under the flag of the United Nations, NATO, and European Union, and by multilateral basis within the resolution of the international community. Under the mandate of the international community and upon a specific request of beneficiary recognized governments, the presence of the Italian contingent is focused and especially devoted to assisting local institutions in conflictual and post-conflict contexts. In this field of stabilization and reconstruction, the commitment of our armed forces is expressed in the sector of civil-military society, in humanitarian assistance, civil reconstruction activities, in disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of ex-combatants, so that they can become an active part in the peace reconstruction process and in the field of stability policing. This, together with initiatives aimed at replacing, forming, or strengthening police institutions in collapsed countries, is developed by the Carabinieri with traditional police techniques of intervention and especially with tailor-made training activities delivered to local police units. To this end, and considering today's topic, the Carabinieri carries out a series of training initiatives that also includes specific teaching modules dedicated to gender-related issues, intended for the training of police forces deployed in areas of the world where it is necessary to adequate awareness-raising solutions towards the protection of vulnerable categories. The female staff of the Carabinieri Corps participate in various international missions, such as in Palestine, Somalia, Cyprus, Iraq, and provides the institutional contribution, especially with regard to the protection of women in peace operations in conflict zones or in the post-war period, through training activities mainly focused on the protection of human rights and the application of the international regulation in compliance with the gender perspective. In particular, as part of all the training activities carried out by the Carabinieri in favor of the police forces of different countries, specialized courses are also promoted and dedicated to the female component of beneficiary police forces in order to increase their knowledge in human rights and enhance their ability to counter crimes perpetrated in violation of those rights, with special reference to gender-based violence. Particular attention to gender-related issues comes to life in international activities which are also carried out in our national territory, Italy, such as the various projects led by the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which promotes a series of practical exercises aimed at countering the trafficking of human beings, open to all representatives of the beneficiary countries of the project, and held here in Italy, in Vicenza, at the Center of Excellence for Stability Police Units, where an ad hoc chair has been established. The closeness and sensitivity of women are a significant value in protecting the rights of the most vulnerable one. An empathic and direct approach that launches a bridge of trust and openness in the theater of war towards victims of violence. I would like to tell you a story, a direct testimony to underline the importance of establishing a climate of trust and care to allow the police forces to identify the causes of the violence and possible solutions. During a training cycle in favor of the police women in a Middle Eastern country on the exploitation of women affiliated to Daesh, On the devastating issue of forced marriage, I reported a case occurred in an Islamic community in northern Italy, described in a newspaper. An episode that fueled trust in women and, at the same time, a feeling of revenge and solidarity with respect to the violence suffered, let alone the desire to help the victim of violence. It's a prerogative of women. It is women who protect other women with a smile on their face. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Geraldine. Many thanks to all of you. Many thanks to all the organizers of this conference. It's been such a privilege to be here. Thank you very much.